Okay, so when Nairi and I were planning this meeting with a little help from Jiff and Joey Listro and other collaborative partners, we were trying to think of what we could focus our conversation on for today. And we decided on advocacy and food policy for a few different reasons. So first, advocacy and policy are really powerful tools for our collaborative and for our efforts around farm to school. And we are excited because the resources and funding action team of the collaborative has started to work towards some policy this legislative session. You can see here on the slide that we are working towards a grants program for Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids. So if you've been around for a little while, you know that there's this week-long celebration in October focused on Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids Week, which is a partnership between the Department of Ag and Department of Education. And given what we know about the need for resources to grow farm to school and some models that we've looked at in other states, our resources and funding team decided on trying to see if we could get a farm to school grants program in Connecticut. So we have a bill number, it's House Bill 5767. It was introduced by Representative Bobby Gibson of the Education Committee, and we've since been able to get co-sponsors for the bill, and it's a really long process, and we'll learn a little bit about that from Meg, but wanted you all to know that we have the efforts of the collaborative behind this and are working really closely with lobbyists, Janice Fleming Butler of Strategic Outreach Services, to try and make this happen. And I'll also say she was really real with us given the focuses or the foci of the legislative session, that this is really a good opportunity in this year to really focus on talking about farm to school with elected officials and growing support for what might be to come in the future too. So we've had that as our focus. And just to be really clear about the intention of this program, it would be for a community, a school district, an organization, or early childhood center to determine what a grant could do to help further their farm to school needs. So as you can see here, there are a lot of options, or at least our intention is to ensure that there are a lot of options for what the grants program could fund, and it would be also targeted towards communities that are receiving, that are higher need communities that have 40% or more of their students eligible for free or reduced price meals, or receiving school readiness funding too. So helping support the communities who don't often have resources or get resources like this. So that's just a quick little intro to why we're focusing on advocacy for this conversation here today. And like I said at the beginning, we like to bring in partners. So we have Meg Hourigan here as the policy director for the Connecticut Food System Alliance. And we're going to hear a little bit about the Connecticut Food System Alliance and the importance of advocacy and what kind of the current environment looks like at the state capitol. Meg, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to try to give just a really quick overview of the legislative session in Connecticut. Dawn already gave a little bit of an introduction to the Connecticut Food System Alliance, but we are a statewide network dedicated to building connections between people and groups across the state, really based around food and the food system. We advocate for systems thinking, meaning that we want people to see the whole system of food from its production to its consumption and disposal. So rather than seeing agriculture or emergency food or farmers markets and school food as separate issues, like seeing the connections between all of those things. And we also use a food justice lens in all of our work, which means that we really must address the racist roots of the food system in order to ensure a just and climate resilient food supply in the state. As a quick overview of what I'm going to be talking about today, I just wanted to share a little bit about lobbying and advocacy. We'll talk a little bit about the Connecticut legislative session and how bills get made here in Connecticut. And I did just pull like a handful of bills that are active right now in the legislature that might be of interest to this group. So lobbying and advocacy can feel really inaccessible or maybe even not permitted if you're a nonprofit. But advocacy is really just any activity that furthers a cause. Talking about your mission or sharing information about an issue, building coalitions and lobbying, all of these things fall under advocacy in a broad sense. Lobbying includes advocating for or against specific legislation or candidates and legislation or regulations. Most nonprofits do not lobby. I think I saw a study that was like 3% of nonprofits do lobbying, but all nonprofits are able to do a certain amount. And obviously, if you're a private citizen, you can spend all of your time talking to legislators if you want. There are different limits about how much time you can spend lobbying. And so I've included some links in this slideshow that I can share with Dawn after this. But it's like a non-significant amount. The IRS has different guidelines based on your budget. I wanted to talk about lobbying and advocacy in general because it's a way to advance your mission, whether that's more local food in schools or ending homelessness or clean water, all of those different things. Advocacy and lobbying are really just a part of a tool that you should be using. The Connecticut legislature is part-time, meaning that bills are written and discussed and passed only while the legislature is in session. We have two different types of sessions in Connecticut, and they happen every other year. So long sessions run from January to June every other year. They're longer because they determine the state budget. Short sessions happen in every other year from February to May to make those adjustments. So we're in a long session right now. The Connecticut General Assembly is bicameral, which just means that like Congress, we have a House of Representatives and a Senate. And so bills have to be passed through both of those bodies in order to go to the governor's desk. I do have this link says kids issues, but it's actually a really good link for the specifics of how bills get made. Bills get introduced either in the House or the Senate. They move through one or more committees where they're relevant, like education or environment. If they cost money, like a grant program, they would move through appropriations. And then they have to be passed by both bodies for the governor to sign or to veto them. So that's like the really one minute version of that. Thousands of bills get introduced each year just in Connecticut, but many don't even really get written beyond their title and purpose. And it's pretty common pattern for a bill to be introduced for several years in a row before they get any traction. Legislators can and do introduce bills for nonprofit organizations, for businesses, coalitions, and individuals. And the governor and state agencies will also work with their legislators to introduce bills that are relevant to them. So the Connecticut Food System Alliance, we do bill tracking for food and farm related bills. So we are keeping tabs on what bills are moving through the legislature. And a question that comes up a lot is what's the best time to get involved? If there's thousands of bills, like right now, for example, there's about a dozen bills that are in some way or another trying to limit access to public assistance. These are like boilerplate bills that just get introduced every year, based on different political leanings, and they won't necessarily even get written. They're not really anything to pay very close attention to. So if you are getting these lists of bills and thinking, oh my God, how do I manage all of these things? Some of the things to look for are just watching for a vote to draft. This means that bill has more viability and somebody is putting the time in, or a group of people are putting the time in to read it, to write it rather. Watching for a public hearing to be scheduled so you can sign up and testify. And then, of course, once it's passed out of committee and it's on the House or Senate floor, that's also a good time to participate in this process by writing or calling your legislator. Again, I've got some links here. It's important to know in addition to knowing who your legislators are, it's important to know what committees they participate in. So if you have a legislator who's on the Public Health Committee, for example, that's really useful. So I've got some links here for where you can find those things. And that brings me to just a handful of bills that I wanted to bring to your attention. The first one is your bill, 5767. I think this is really exciting to be moving forward, and where Connecticut Food System Alliance is watching this and interested in helping promote this in any way that we can. There's another bill that really combines some concepts that are in other bills across that are in the legislature right now. One of them would be to make chicken eggs count as eligible for the Farmers Market Nutrition Program vouchers. So for WIC and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program vouchers that they can use on Connecticut grown produce, but eggs don't count. So that would be making it possible to buy eggs with those vouchers, as well as increasing the voucher value. The public hearing for that bill was last week. And another one that's going to be relevant to many of our communities where we don't have universal free meals, but still quite a few people who are using free and reduced price school meals. An act concerning school lunch debt, because we live in a country where our priorities are really straight. We have to make some legislation to prohibit punishing children over having lunch debt, allowing children with lunch debt to purchase meals, and allowing schools to accept donations, erasing school lunch debt. So this bill has been drafted, and there was a public hearing already. We are keeping track of these and several other bills, but this is just to give you an idea of some of the things that the legislature is talking about right now. I did want to spend most of this time, if we could, if you have any questions for me, and if there's other things that you want to learn. We do use our listserv and network to share these food and farm legislative updates, and anyone is welcome to use our listserv and network to call on others to support this bill or to organize around different issues as well. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Meg, thanks so much. It looks like there's one, now two, three in the chat. Lisa, do you want me to share it, or do you want to share it? I'm gonna go right in order. Okay. I can't see you. I'm gonna take that as
That's fine. I was on mute and I was multitasking. Sorry about that. Hey Meg, it's Lisa in Norwalk. I'm just curious, a lot of this work, as I've seen throughout the years, is really focused in, a particular city or, and then it kind of lives there. What's your kind of plan to kind of get it out, throughout the state?
What do you mean by like in a particular, like, what do you mean?
So I've seen a lot of the food system work has been centered in depending on the people who are involved, really is what it comes down to. So it's either kind of centered in Hartford, or I've seen New Haven, things like that. So I was just wondering if there's a plan to kind of, get it out more spread and start talking about a regional approach as opposed to just, a single, city kind of carrying the weight and carrying the message.
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of the legislative work, that's like statewide by definition, and it's just a matter of bringing more people into this network to be connected with the food and farm bills that are coming up. But in general, in other parts of our work, the Connecticut Food System Alliance, we are interested in working with community organizations across the state to start developing a food action plan. But that's right now wouldn't be connected to legislation right away. I think that could be like in a little bit, but not at the moment. And so that's really just like community by community based on like where there's ability to do that work, where there's money to do that work in some cases. So that's really piecemeal right now.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can take this. Oh, do you want to go?
Oh, well, I just opened the chat. So
okay.
Shannon asked what can be done to advance the farm to school bill. I would think that if any, can somebody, I don't remember which committee, is it an education or is it, okay. So I think that anybody who has a legislator who is in the education committee, I think that would be a good way to get talking about it and get it toward the public hearing. I understand from Joey that this does have language already, but it's not introduced in the legislature. Is that right?
Yes, hold on one sec. I was just trying to chat this committee list. So it's outside of the, okay. So if you want to see the legislators that make up the committees, including the education committee, you can go to the link I just chatted. That's right. So our bill, House Bill 5767, was raised in the education committee and is still working on being drafted. To answer your question, Shannon, we're trying to figure out the back end, so internally, like what's happening right now, like where is someone working on getting the language that our resources and funding team put together, written into bill language, so that it can be seen for a public hearing, or be introduced formally, and have the chance to be part of a public hearing in the education committee. So we're working on that like today. At the same time, I don't think, like I said in the beginning, like it feels like at the very early stages of this long journey of educating legislators about Connecticut Grown for Connecticut Kids, food systems in general, local sourcing opportunity for schools, farm to school, all of that. So it never hurts, and it would be great if as a collaborative we started doing more educating. So you could, if you already know your state rep or senator, if you don't, you can find out through the links that that Meg sent and reach out and talk to them about why you personally or your organization feels like this work is important, and feel free to mention this bill, because I think it's like a top down and bottom up approach too, like what we'd want communities to say how a grants program like this or farm to school support at the state level in general could impact their communities, and having that come from a constituent is really powerful.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answered your question.
And I also wanted to answer the question from Jiv about how submitting testimony has changed as a result of COVID. Right now, the Capitol is closed to the general public. That includes average citizens, and that includes lobbyists, actually. But in some ways, it's easier now to testify than it has been in the past. In years past, in order to be physically present for a public hearing, you would have to get to the Capitol at 8 in the morning, regardless of where you live. You'd have to be in Hartford at 8 in the morning, sign up, and wait. You can wait honestly as many as 12 hours that you would have to be waiting to testify. Now there's actually, they're all being done by Zoom. So when public hearings get scheduled, a public hearing for like the education committee would have an agenda. We're going to talk about these 12 bills or whatever it is. And you register for that public hearing, you get the Zoom link, and then you get to testify. So you can wait for it on your couch rather than sitting in one of those little chairs in a committee room in the LOB all day. And as and so then submitting written testimony hasn't changed. You can just email it to the specific committee.
Meg, at what time do you sign up to testify, and by what time do you have to submit written testimony?
I think it's the day before at 3 p.m.
For both of those?
For what? For both written testimony and for signing up for the hearing. Yeah.
3 p.m. the day before. Okay.
I think that's, I don't know if that's for all of them, but for the ones that I've been seeing, it's been that 3 p.m. deadline. Yeah.
I see. So it might vary by committee.
Yeah. And all of the food and farm bills, the CFSA is tracking them. And so the week beforehand, we'll share like what's got a public hearing coming next week, and we'll include all the links and all that stuff. The link to sign up for them for it, a public hearing itself, I can show you. The General Assembly website has a daily bulletin. Can you see did I change that properly? So just as an example, this document gets released every day called the bulletin. It is basically like a calendar for the week. It's a huge document. So like I'm just gonna try to see a public hearing schedule. Public budget hearings are happening this week, so that's not as relevant, but let's just see. Yeah, so here's an example. And again, like these are really big documents and include all of the bills. So the Connecticut Food System Alliance, we're just trying to filter out for the food related ones. So if there's a relevant bill coming up in the Appropriations Committee on Thursday, we would have shared that the week ahead so that you don't have to sift through this whole document. But for each committee, this online testimony registration form will come up in the bulletin the day of, and it is just a Zoom link. You just sign up there. This one I think is, yeah. See, the registration will close the day before at 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Dawn, I trust that the Resources and Funding Action Team will help provide some testimony language at the right time for folks.
Yeah. Yes, I just mentioned to Val in the chat that we have a template email that could be used, and then we'd be working on template testimony too. So you would plug in like your individual like information about your community and why this would be important, how it would impact your community, but it would have the bill number and language at the top, and we'll try to make it as easy as possible for everyone who wanted to submit. And we are kind of short on time, but Meg, do you mind answering Jen's question?
Oh yeah,
in the chat. And then if there's like an appetite for this, and it seems like there may be, we didn't attempt to make this a training, but if folks are interested, that's something we can think about providing. So we could dig into the details of all of this and the how-tos, and including sourcing ideas from those that are also on the line who have some experience here.
Yeah, please do chime in. in answer to Jen's question about the hyperlocal, I, like Don was saying, I think having that prepared language and asking neighbors and community members to be sending in that shared language is a good way to do this on the local level. So yeah, again, I think that Don was speaking to this, but if you live in a district where your legislator is on a certain committee, that means more coming from them, from you, rather than like if you don't live in that district and are asking ahead of time, but that's like pre-public hearing. Afterwards, like after it passes out of committee, obviously there's all of our legislators have a stake in it. Does that answer your question, Jen?
Yeah, I think so. I think I just was wondering if there's like specific people we should be speaking to now on the very local level, but that does answer that.
All right. Thanks, Meg. Really appreciate you taking time to join us today. I hope you'll come back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We might need your advice and guidance as we get further down this road.